So we are continuing the cognitive errors, which are statistical errors or information processing error we do in making decision, such kind of mistake. So one bias under the category of cognitive errors, and most specifically the under the category of information processing biases we left in today's class, that is the availability bias. And what we try to understand in terms of availability bias is that when we are asked to determine the probability or determine the likelihood of different outcomes which can come from a decision, we tend to give more weight to those outcomes which are more likely to think of, which are more likely to be perceived, which are more likely to be think of in the first in the very few moments in our decision making process. I mean, if we need to take decision today, we have to think of the probable outcomes, and if we see that some outcomes are more easy to think of, some outcomes are more easy to catch in our mind, we feel that those outcomes are more likely. But as a we as a rational decision maker, we need to acknowledge all the possible outcomes, and to be objective, we need to be objective in making the probability estimate of each and every outcome. If you think of the example, the thing is that if I ask you that to pick 3 stocks for your portfolio to make investment in a stock market nowadays, many of you will pick 3 stocks which are commonly known to all of us. Is it likely? Anyone will pick Hokkani Pulp and Pulp, this company?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anyone will pick Tofika Food?
Sir, Tofika food can not yet be bought.
Has not been listed yet.
Yes, sir.
But so you are aware of that company because that company is in IPO list.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So what I'm trying to say, that the companies which are not appear in our mind in the very beginning, we try to underestimate their probability, and we try to underestimate the probability associated with those kind of outcome. So if we like to understand what are the sources of this kind of availability bias, there are some sources which we need to recognize. Those sources are kind of retrievability and categorization and narrow range of experience and the resonance. So let me discuss uh, some of the sources. Let's say the retrievability. So if it is like that, how many of you are 43? 43. So out of these 42 participants, I know very well that how many are men here, how many are women here. So if I give or if I mention the list of all participants in this 42 to a group of people, that I have this 40, I have a list of 42 people. So I know very well. So for example, there are 30 women. Just for example, there are 30 women, and there are 12 men. Okay. 12 men and 30 women. Let's just think of, okay. So when I will mention your name to these people randomly, I will mention these 42 people name. Okay. I have not told them that I have 30 women, I have 12 men in my list. I have not mentioned this breakdown. So let's suppose this out of this 12 men name, there are some name which are very common, like famous name. Famous name means here in my case, let's assume some names which are very common, say Rohim, Korim, uh, kind of this name, Sohel, this kind of this name, for example. And these 30 women name are kind of their name are very kind of unique name. These are not very common name. uh, I'm not mentioning any name. Okay, these are very uncommon name. Okay, so if I ask them, these people, uh, after mentioning all the 42 people name, okay, and if I ask them to retrieve their mind, to retrieve the name of these people, and what do you think? Which names will be more likely to be recalled by these people? Man name or women name?
Sir, main name.
Man name, because these are some common name, and so you have got it that they will mention more about this common man name. And if I also ask them that how many men are in my list and how many women are in my list, what do you think? What will be their responses? Do you think they will be able to recall more female name compared to male name?
No, sir.
They will be able to recall more man name. So don't you think that they will be end up saying that there are more men compared to women in this list?
Yes, sir.
So what is happening here? People are unconsciously assume that the name which are readily available in their mind, the outcomes are more likely, and those names are more retrievable from their memory, and they feel that it is more likely that these things will happen, but actual effect is different. Okay, and at the same time, if I like to take another source of example, say narrow range of experience. Narrow range of experience, it is like that. uh, Say you have entered into the bubble market right now happening in Bangladesh, bubble financial market. So say you have entered into 2020 and and you have an experience up to 2022. How many experience you have gathered? 3 years, right? Okay. So you work in this market when the market was going very well. The market is going very well. So after having this 3 years experience, what kind of a statement is more likely? The Bangladesh financial market is very good to achieve a good amount of abnormal return.
Yes, sir.
Will be conclude like this. But if you are probably from 22nd or 23rd batch, okay. But if you ask anyone from say 15th or 14th batch who are working in this market, not 14th, 15th. If you ask something who is from 8th or 9th batch, okay, they have experienced the 2010 bubble and the crash in 2011. Okay, so what do you think? They will conclude like this, that Bangladesh market is a very good market to have a high abnormal return. What do you think? Their conclusion will be similar to the conclusion of the people who are from this range, or their conclusion will be like this, that there is a good amount of uncertainties in this market.
Yes, sir. There are good amount of uncertainties, but still
Agree.
abnormal profits can be made.
Sorry.
So there are good amounts of uncertainties, but still abnormal profits can be made.
Yeah, still abnormal profits can be made, but
Yes.
you see, the person who have entered in 2020 or 2021, will these people conclude that there is a good amount of uncertainties in the market?
No, sir.
Will they say?
No, sir.
That is the availability bias. You see, the outcomes which are easy to catch in your mind are more likely. Okay, so what is the consequence of having this kind of availability bias in making decision? So which font you will pick that will advertise more? The font that will advertise more will be picked by you. The stock which is which has more media coverage, say Robi has more media coverage right now, Beximco Pharma has more media coverage nowadays, then Lanka Bangla Finance has more media coverage, then the Citibank has more media coverage. Whatever the reason for the media coverage, I'm not asking for that reason, but you see these companies are commonly covered in the financial press.
Yes, sir.
So you will be more likely to end up making investment here. You'll be more likely because these are more commonly more common stocks which come into your mind first. But if I ask you to make investments, say, what should I say? I even can't recall any unpopular stock. Okay. So say if I ask you to make investment in, say, what should I say? GBB Power.
Or sir, Indo Bangla Pharmaceuticals.
Which one?
Indo Bangla Pharmaceuticals.
Yeah. So you will think 100 times, though this probably this could be good investment, but you will think how many times? At least 100 times of making one taka investment here. What is the reason? Because you are suffering from availability bias. You are suffering from availability bias, and when it is the case, what is more likely? We are likely to limit our investment opportunity set. So say people are talking much more about which kind of investment nowadays.
So যেগুলো advertisement.
This one, saving certificate. But still you see that there are venture capital fund, there are venture capital investment nowadays possible in Bangladesh. And in saving certificate, you may have the return of 11% or more than this, but from the venture capital fund, it may be likely that you will get a 20% plus return. So why you are not going there? Because you see, saving certificate is a kind of investment which is easy to perceive from your mind, but you do not know it very well about the venture capital fund because it does not come commonly in your mind when you think of making investment, right? So that is kind of an example of availability bias. So these are kind of consequences we know, and because of the availability bias, we do not put importance on those stocks or those investment which may be good for me for making diversification or for making good risk return relationship. That's why our diversification may be poor for this kind of availability bias. So the thing is that always you need to be very careful in research and analyze your investment decision before making them, and always think it very careful. Always think it that good companies are not necessarily good investment. Good companies are very covered in media because of their blockbuster performance. Okay, so when you see the good companies are very covered in the media and well known by all people, what is more likely? They tend to be overvalued or they tend to be undervalued? What do you think?
So overvalued.
That will be
Overlooked.
overvalued. So in that case, if you end up buying this, is it likely that you will have a good amount of return later? It will be unlikely. It will be unlikely. So we need to avoid this kind of bias, and at the same time, what we need to do, we do not have to forget about events that happened more than a few years ago. You see in some newspapers that there have been good vibes in the current market 2020, 2021, a good number of reportings. Every report is positive. You see right now in financial press, every news is positive. There has been new record every day for transaction, for number of trades, for the total, the percent changes in index. People are expecting that index will go beyond 6,000. You see this kind of news in financial press right now.
Yes, sir.
It exactly happened 10 years back when I was a student like you.
Yes, sir. The index went beyond 10,000.
Yeah, it exactly happened. Okay, so some stocks have become overvalued not for their fundamentals but for investor sentiment. So you know very well, if you end up buying a stock which has become higher price because of high investor sentiment, you need to be prepared for poor return in coming days, because the price based on which you bought has not been reached to that price for fundamentals but for this kind of positive vibe in the market, kind of sentiment, kind of overestimation of the return by the investors. Okay, so investment stock return is very closer to zero sum game. Have you heard about zero sum game?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes,
it's not
sir.
kind of all people will end up having gain together. When all some people are having gain, some people are at the same time having loss. Okay, so always we should not be very short-sighted. We should not be very short-sighted. We must have a very long-term perspective, not from the coming 10 years or coming 20 years. Still, we have to think of what happened in 2010, 11, what happened in 1996. And you can, if you read the text in the finance, you see the history repeats. History repeats, okay? And the factors what influences the earlier bubble and crash, the factors are likely to influence the coming bubble and coming crash. Okay, so we need to take those we need to take we need to take the lesson from the history, and we should not forget the history. Okay, so I do not like to add further about the availability bias. Let's conclude the cognitive errors. You already have recognized that this kind of errors come from statistical information processing errors and also come from the faulty reasoning in our memory. But the thing is that if we can educate ourselves for correcting these errors, and if someone draws our attention to correct this error, we are very likely to correct those error, because it's a kind of errors related to statistical processing or information processing or memory processing. But what you have learned that emotional bias, which are not related to this, which are kind of more emotional, more feeling, more inner, these are not very likely to be eradicated by giving proper education, by giving adequate education. These are kind of people own feeling, some kind of gut feeling. Okay, so always for avoiding cognitive error, we need to have a systematic process for what? For gathering, for recording, and for synthesizing information. And for each decision, we have to document what decision we have taken, what reasons we are responsible for taking the decision. And if we do any buy, we uh, we have to mention that for what reason I have bought this stock, for what reason. If I sell one stock, I have to write in a document for what reason I have sold this stock, so that these things will help me to avoid this kind of errors in coming investment or in investment in coming days. Okay, so now let's turn to the emotional biases. What I have mentioned, it comes from some emotional feeling, some kind of which are more related to the mental state of the people, and it differs from person to person. Uh, Probably I gave some hint about one emotional bias in previous class, that is kind of overconfidence, and we'll talk more about it today in today's class. And the thing is that when it is possible that we can recognize later after demonstrating that we are overconfident or we could not control ourselves, this kind of biases. But the thing is that education is not sufficient to correct these biases. And when we exhibit this kind of biases, like every other bias, it is very likely that we will make decision, but that is will be suboptimal. And the thing is that there are a very limited set of emotional biases because it is difficult to identify the emotional biases, and a limited set of emotional biases will be discussed in our class and in also our reading. So first of all, the bias in emotional category we like to discuss, that is the loss aversion bias. Okay, so here people have a different mindset, different attitude toward the similar amount of gain and similar amount of loss. You probably have recognized from the prospect theory given by the Kahneman and Tversky. Can you recall? In prospect theory, we mentioned that the value function, which looks like the uh, utility function of the people, if it is the gain region and if it is the loss region, people attitude are asymmetric. In loss region, it is kind of more, it has more slope, but in case of gain, it has more flattening, less sloping. Okay, so here we mention the value function and we measure the gain and loss here in terms of dollar or in terms of the monetary gain or loss. And this value function reflects the kind of utility, and it depends on how the gain and loss have been separated by a arbitrary reference point of individual. People feeling is different, but what is our concentration here? That is here. People feel more strongly for having similar amount of loss compared to people feeling about similar amount of gain. So for a strong feeling, people feel it very bad to realize losses. People want to hold a loss position for a longer time than the justified time. People do not feel it good to realize the loss. People prefer to defer loss. People feel that there will be time when my purchase price will be reverted and I will be able to break even. But people have a false belief that after 2 years it will come back. After 3 years it will come back. But it has been observed that even after 10 years it could not come back. Is it true? It
Sir,
happened.
it's not always false, sir. It's true. I have experience like this.
So you have this kind of bias, or you can avoid this bias,
স্যার এই বায়াস ফলো করে স্যার আমি স্যার লস পজিশন থেকে গেইন করেছি।
right? But how many years for which you expected, but how many years you have been able to break even?
স্যার ব্রেক ইভেন করে স্যার আমি স্যার কিছু গেইন করেছিলাম, তবে ওয়েট করা লাগছিল 4 ইয়ার্স।
4 years. But
ইয়েস স্যার।
did you expect that it will take 4 years, or you expected more than that or less than that?
স্যার আই ডিড নট ফর্মুলেট এনি এক্সপেকটেশন,
You
আই
didn't
জাস্ট
know about that.
ইয়েস স্যার আই জাস্ট লেফট ইট।
Okay. But there may be there might be a possibility that if you would realize that loss after 2 years, if you had a proper plan, that if you realize that loss in year 2 and invested in another undervalued stock, for example, and within that 2 years you could have more gain, that can be one possibility.
স্যার ইন মাই কেস স্যার দ্যাট ওয়াজ নট পসিবল বিকজ
That was not possible.
আই লস্ট
Maybe
অলমোস্ট
your
অলমোস্ট
loss was
টু বিগ।
adequately large.
ইয়েস স্যার।
Okay. Okay. So it is just a kind of example, but sometimes it can break even, sometimes it may not reach to break even, because either you invested at a very higher price, or you have made short sale at a very uh, high at a price which is not justified, because price went up later after having your purchase. Okay. So the thing is that in that case, what people do, people increase their risk. People increase their risk. You see, what you are saying, that after 4 years you have been able to
মেক গেইনস।
come back,
ইয়েস স্যার।
right?
ইয়েস
Okay.
স্যার।
Just think of a possibility that after 4 years it could go even more worse.
ইয়েস স্যার।
That can be one possibility.
ইয়েস স্যার।
In that case, what you are doing, you are increasing, obviously you are trying to come at break even, but at the same time you are also wanting, you are taking more exposure to risk.
ইয়েস স্যার।
So that is happening, that happens for having the loss aversion bias. And in finance, people like to exhibit this kind of loss aversion bias, but the thing is that why we take more risk, why we take more risk for more return.
ইয়েস স্যার।
But do it need, is it wise to make more risk for reducing loss? For reducing loss, or for not for reducing, that is inappropriate, for averting loss, for avoiding loss, is it appropriate to take more risk? We have not learned it from finance. We learned it to make more return, we need to take more risk. But sometimes for avoiding losses, we end up taking more risk. Okay, that is kind of conflicting. So sometimes you see that in capital budgeting decision, you probably have come through the discussion of option, real option. Can you recall? Can you recall the real option from your capital budgeting or corporate finance course? Have you heard about it? Real option valuation?
Yes, sir. Vaguely
Okay.
remember.
Okay.
There was a decision tree.
Yeah. And there is also learning that when it turns out that the project will not go well. Project is not project is not going well as expected. In that case, there is a chance of making abandon. There is a chance of abandoning your project. But if it is like that, instead of abandoning the loss, what you are doing, you are trying to reiterate it, and you are trying to escalate the operation to see that is there any chance to reduce the loss by having more exposure, by having more chance In that case, when you are taking more chance for reducing loss or for reducing the probability of loss, in addition to waiting for more break even, you are also increasing your risk exposure greater than the risk exposure you estimated earlier. Okay, so the thing is that for having a potential gain, people may tend to take more risk. And the thing is that we already have mentioned about it from the perspective of value function, which has been identified by the Kahneman and Tversky in their prospect theory. So we have to, okay, we'll talk about recommendation later in this slide. And related to loss aversion, another finding is that, which is related to loss aversion, that is the disposition effect. So what disposition effect is saying, that people have a tendency to hold the loss position for longer time than the expected time, and people have a tendency to sell the gain position earlier than the expected time. Anyone experience anyone have this kind of bias, that you expect some little gain? For example, you bought a stock 30 and you have got 40, you end up selling this stock at 40, though there could be a chance that it will go to 50, but
Yes,
you
sir. It
no longer
recently happened.
want to wait for that.
Yes, sir. It happened recently.
So this effect is known as disposition effect. And the opposite thing happen in case of loss position. The opposite thing happens in case of loss position. So that is known as disposition effect. So what's the consequence of this kind of loss aversion bias? People hold a position longer than justified by fundamental analysis. Always we need to analyze that for how many years. How many years we can hold a stock. You see, that is easy. For Tanvir, you have mentioned that 4 years you waited, right?
Yes, sir.
Because you had an equity investment. Is it true?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now just think of, if you had a margin for making investment here, was it possible to wait for 4 years?
No, sir.
So in that case, you would not be able to revert, wait, you'd not be able to wait for 4 years to revert it back to the break-even level. Okay. So we need to avoid this kind of loss aversion bias, and we need to be very objective for how many years will wait for it. And it has also been observed that people hold riskier portfolio than is acceptable. Sometimes you see that people have a tendency to hold, it has already been proved that it will not go to the break-even price anymore. There has been sufficient evidence, but you don't like to believe it, because you will feel that it will give you more pain if you face this loss. In that case, you are holding more riskier portfolio than the expected. So always what we need to do, we need to avoid the emotion, and we need to acknowledge the pain. In addition to the gain, we acknowledge when we have a gain position, and we, as a rational, we need to equalize, or we need to have an equal value for the same amount of gain and for the same amount of loss. We should not look at gain and loss differently. If we see, say, we have 100 taka gain or we have 100 taka loss, we need, what do you think, what should an rational investor should look at these two? He should look at this gain and loss objectively,
Sir,
as these amounts are equal.
I have a personal opinion in this matter.
Yeah.
Sir, from economics, we learned that our resources are scarce.
Yeah.
Our personal resources are also scarce, sir.
Okay.
So we can gain an infinite amount of money, but we can lose only a certain amount of money. So our bias will be to avoid losing those certain amount we have. So
Obviously.
yes, sir. It's sir, natural, sir. We'll put more weight in.
Obviously, it's natural, but if we do it, what kind of consequences We have to prepare to experience this kind of consequences.
Yes, sir.
So for avoiding these consequences, we need to avoid that. Okay. So we need to follow a disciplined approach, and we sometimes when the loss is inevitable. Okay. So say what would I say? Say you probably have heard about that the Johnson and Johnson, right?
Yes, sir.
Johnson and Johnson. This stock uh, in a 2 or 3 years interval face a legal suit commonly that their powder or their product causes harm to a baby or children, and the court has fined a significant amount of money, right? You see this news for
Yes,
Johnson
sir.
and Johnson product.
Yes, sir. Heard about it.
Okay. So when you see this news, what is expected? The stock price should come down.
Yes, sir.
The stock price should come down. So we, we need to have a disciplined approach that uh, how much we expect from the Johnson and Johnson stock. But if it turns out that uh, Johnson and Johnson stock is trading at a low price, and you have very unlikely chance, or you have a very poor chance to get the price back in which price you bought when there was no legal suit. In that case, what we need to do? We need to experience the loss, or we need to wait for 5 years, 10 years.
Sir, from a rational point, we should liquidate the position.
Yeah.
Sir, we had a similar situation in Bangladesh
Hmm.
a few months back.
Which
GP
one?
faced GP faced a 120 billion dollar taka fine.
Yeah.
At that point, the GP was trading around 250,
Hmm.
but now it's around 390. Sir, if we liquidated at that point,
Hmm.
so we would we would face a huge opportunity
But
cost.
the
Or
thing is that when there has been a legal suit for Johnson and Johnson or for Grameen Phone, this legal suit for 1.2 billion is not the total story of its valuation, right?
yes, sir.
It is a part of its story. So if we just look at one part of the story, in that case, our valuation will be appropriate or inappropriate.
So inappropriate. Yes, sir.
So you know very well, it is not only the reason that why GP has turned back to 377, because GP has performed well in these 2 or 3 years after having this legal claim by the regulatory authority. You should not forget about the bull market
Yes, sir.
that is happening for every stock, including GP, right?
Yes, sir.
So you should not, not you, I mean, we should not justify that if we would sell, for example, GP at 300, we would miss this 377. Okay, this kind of bubble, this kind of crash are have some indication, but uh, mostly unpredictable. Mostly unpredictable from 2 or 3 years back. Okay, even sophisticated analysts may miss this kind of opportunity, or some sophisticated investors also ride on this kind of bubble and crash. Okay, so the thing is that we need to have some rational decision making process. So we need to see that if we continue averting this loss, or if we sell off this stock and realize this loss, we need to have a comparative picture. So if we see that it is better to sell off this and to make investment elsewhere, in that case you go for it. But what is the problem? We do not do any comparative picture. So in that case, the bias arises, and that bias causes harm to our portfolio wealth. Okay. Now you have a quiz before you, and you have a very guideline for beginning the quiz. And for that quiz, what you have to do, you have to take a blank page, and I will give you 10 GK question, and you have to write down the answer for that question in a confidence interval format. You know the confidence interval format, the average plus minus percentage of significant deviation, standard deviation. You know how to write the confidence interval format answer. You know, if I ask you that what is the 90% confidence interval that will happen to the Robi stock price today, your 90% confidence interval, say if I write in this way, uh, 62 to 66, what I'm trying to say, Robi trading price will stay between these two prices, 62 and 66, and I am how much percentage I'm confident? 90%. Have you got the answer format?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so are you ready? You are ready to answer 10 general knowledge questions. I will give you maximum 3 minutes for answering that question. Have you taken your blank page, or you don't like to participate? Only 34 participants. Okay, I think in that case 3 minutes will be more than let me give you 1.5 minute, 1.5 minutes. Okay, those questions will not be finance questions. Those questions will be general knowledge questions, and you will ask me why you are asking general knowledge questions in the portfolio management. The answer is that there will be a purpose which will be clear to you uh, within a very short time. Okay, so let's begin. Okay, so write down the answer of these questions. Let me give you 1 minute for writing the answer. Don't go for exploring the resources to write down the answers. Try to use your memory, try to use your brain. There will be no point for having a good score or for having bad score in this quiz. Okay, just try to write down your answer by yourself based on your memory. Let me speak for the questions. What is the average weight of the adult blue whale in tons? What is the distance to the moon in miles? What is the weight of the Statue of Liberty in tons? What is the length of the river Nile in miles? How many member states are there in United Nations? How old was Mozart when he died? How many points in total did Michael Jordan score in the playoffs in his NBA career? What was the offering price in dollars for one Microsoft share when the company became public in March 13, 1986? How many albums has Eminem sold globally? How many different types of spiders have been identified? So your time is going on. I'll ask you your response in 12:22. Be fair in writing your responses. Don't try to take help from other resources. Just try to use your memory. There will be no consequences regardless of the performance. Okay, it's 12:22. Uh, I think you have written down your answer. Let me disclose the answers. So before disclosing the answer, what should I say? You will just pick up the, you will check your answers and you will see that in how many questions out of 10 your confidence interval is confidence interval contains contains the answer. Your confidence interval contains the answer in how many questions. There is the answer. Have you checked? How many of you have got 10 out of 10 correct? I mean, your confidence interval in 10 questions contains these 10 answers. Okay, anyone wants to share your score? Anyone zero? Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anyone has zero score out of this 10? I would have zero score because my
স্যার
GK is
কাছাকাছি
very poor.
কাছাকাছি গেলে হবে।
I mean, the answer will be correct if your confidence interval contains this answer. In that case, you are correct.
Sir,
But
I have
if it is
0.
like that, your confidence interval does not contain this answer, in that case, your score will be 0 for that question. Okay.
লাইক যেমন
Around 3.
3.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What about
Sir,
others?
4.
4.
0.
0.
Yes, sir.
স্যার
0.
Okay. Anyone has higher score than 4? Smarter? Okay, let's continue without further ado on this quiz. The thing is that when I have said 90% confidence interval, what is expected? It is expected that in out of the 10 questions, in 90% cases, it is also true in 90% cases, your answer contains, your answer is, I mean, your confidence interval answer contains the exact answer. But we have found that only one person or whatever, do not know exact number of person, the maximum score is 4. So, but when we are writing this answer, how much confident we are? Is it?
Sir, 50% confident.
But I have mentioned that you need to have 90% confident. Okay, that's why you have wrote it. You have wrote it, right?
Yes, sir.
When I'm saying that write a 90% confidence level, would you write something in which you have 40% confidence? No or yes? When I'm asking 90% confidence interval, that means you are writing something in which you have how much confidence?
90%.
90% confidence. Okay. Uh, the thing is that it has been approximated in error rate in this case is 40%. Error rate reported in experiment is roughly 40%, but people feel that they are 90% correct. So their calibration of their capacity was not appropriate. There has been a miscalibration bias. So the thing is that what we have to acknowledge that the amount of knowledge or the knowledgeable we feel about ourselves are less than the actual knowledge what we really have. For example, we have a tendency to know, to feel that we know many things. We know many things, or we know a good amount of things. But we commonly have a tendency to overestimate ourselves. Though sometimes we share that I didn't study for exam, I didn't prepare for my exam. This kind of questions. But when someone is asked a general question, for example, if I ask you a general question that what should I say? Uh, Say, what is the price of HP 450 model laptop? So I know very well right now you do not have the exact answer, but you would say something between 60 to 70. But it may turn out that the exact price is 90,000. But we are confident with our price range, but when we go to the market, we see that the price is more than the range we estimated. But we are confident in this range we estimated. So when you see your confidence interval does not reflect the real answer or the precise answer, precise estimation, in that case your confidence is overconfidence or underconfidence. What do you think? Your confidence does not reflect the true answer, your confidence interval. In that case, we sometimes underestimate the errors associated with our estimation. We underestimate the errors associated with underestimation. How do we measure the error? Can you recall this? How do we measure possible deviation from the expected outcome with this?
Sigma root n, as far as I can recall.
Okay.
Sigma divided by root n.
Uh, yeah, that is the standard error. I'm not asking the standard error. I mean the deviation or the risk we estimated by the sigma, or simply sigma. These
Yes,
are
sir.
some different ways of expressing the deviation. But if we are more, if we are over, have a tendency to exhibit overconfidence, what is more likely? We will try to underestimate the standard deviation associated with possible outcome.
Yes, sir.
That is the overconfidence. Okay, we tend to exhibit this kind of overconfidence bias, and people have unwarranted faith in their own knowledge, own abilities, own reasoning. Okay, but people includes we all, including me, including you, including all people, including Elon Musk. Okay, so people tend to believe that they are more smarter than the smartness they actually have. Okay, but sometimes this smartness, sometimes this overconfidence is necessary in case of corporate job, to exhibit or to take more responsibility. And it has been found that the global CEOs are in general more overconfident. Not more, the adjective is additional here, the adjective should be discarded. The global CEOs are the global CEOs are overconfident. Okay, on an average. So why we do have this overconfidence? Because we have a false belief on our knowledge. We have a false belief on our knowledge. And it has been found that when overconfidence is associated with self-attribution bias, In that case, it is more dangerous. So what is self-attribution bias? So say I have got 3.8 CGP in a particular semester. I feel that I spend a good time in uh, exam, preparing for exam. I worked hard, I studied a lot, and my hard work is paid off. We see this kind of pleasing statement to give us pleasure after having this good score. Okay. But when I see my score has become 3.40, I try to believe that the faculties are very unjust in evaluation. They didn't give me proper evaluation. Though I did have a good exam, they didn't give me a score well. Do we have this kind of self-attribution bias? I personally had this kind of self-attribution bias. Do we have?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the thing is that people take credit for gain. People don't like to take credit for failure. Okay. In our family, when we do good result in our academic assessment, who is the first to take the credit? And when we fail in our exam, father make responsible to whom? That it's your son, it's your daughter, and it's yours. But when we do good result, father says, he is my son, he is my sorry, she is my daughter, that's why he or she has performed well. Okay, that is happening right now in our financial market. So when the market is going well, market is now bull, regulator is taking credit that we have done a good, we have coined through a good number of regulations that is working well. And Bangladesh Bank is trying to take credit, and government is trying to take credit. Investors are also trying to take credit, and also analysts are trying to take credit. Even the mutual fund managers are also trying to credit. We performed very well in 2020. Our hard work has been paid off. Got it?
Yes, sir.
But if you compare this story just in 2019, you would see regulator is saying we did well, but it didn't work for this person. Investors invested poorly. They are not knowledgeable, and analysts are doing mistake, and Bangladesh Bank was not accommodative enough. This kind of a statement, right?
Yes, sir.
So it's not this example spans not from our personal CGPA example. It spans from it is stress to every corner. Okay. The thing is that overconfidence has both cognitive and emotional errors. And in cognitive errors, you see there's a statistical issue. You try to underestimate the risk. So you need to have an objective assessment of the risk. And you know very well, when you have a statistics, you have a good comment in a statistics, you know it, you do it very well to measure your risk very well. Okay. But the emotional error also a part of emotional errors is also linked to the overconfidence bias, but that is very difficult to correct. And another thing which we need to acknowledge, that there are two basic types of overconfidence. One is prediction overconfidence, another one is certainty overconfidence. You already have shown the prediction overconfidence when you are participating in the quiz. What you are doing, uh, you are estimating a confidence interval. Do you think that confidence interval was narrower or wider? When you have seen your answer, but you immediately felt that your confidence interval should be more wider or should be more narrower?
Should be wider.
Should be more wider. People
Yes.
tend to have more narrower confidence interval for having overconfidence. Okay, just think of, if I say that Robi price will be closed at 40 to 80, it is more wider interval compared to when I said 62 to 64. In which case I will pick, this. When I am overconfident, I will pick this.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is known as prediction overconfidence, and the certainty overconfidence is that we try to overestimate the certainty level greater than the objective probability. Okay, say in case of year crash, the chances are less than 1%. The chances are less than 1%.
Sir, one in several millions.
Yeah, I have to write a number, that's why I'm telling less than 1%. Okay, but you see that when we really assess ourselves, that what is the how certain you are that there will be a crash in the plane, in that case will we estimate it 1% or more than 1%? We feel it more certain that the plane crash will happen.
Yes, sir.
So how can we what is the consequence first? If we have the overconfidence bias, you already have you need to have a very intuitive feeling that what will happen if we have the overconfidence bias. We already have mentioned it. We have a tendency to underestimate our risk. When you have underestimation of your risk, what will happen? You will have a poorly diversified portfolios. Okay, for example, people are rushing after which stock right now? Bexinco Pharma.
Yes, sir.
Okay, what is the reason? What is the single reason?
So it's hiking.
Hmm?
It's hiking.
Yeah, hiking. But what is the single reason people are rushing after Bexinco Pharma?
Sir, overconfidence, যেটা আরো ভালো করবে।
Obviously overconfidence, but people are getting overconfidence for what reason?
ও স্যার, এর সাথে একটা কন্ট্রাক্ট পেয়েছে ভ্যাকসিনের।
They have received a contract and
Yes,
they'll
sir.
participate in that contract,
Yes,
right?
sir. $1 per vaccine.
They are the first party in the contract or the second party in providing vaccine, or they are the third party?
So third party স্যার ইম্পোর্ট করবে জাস্ট।
They are the third party. Okay, if you look at my portfolio, I have the Gilead Sciences. Okay, can you recall the Gilead Sciences? Can you recall this Gilead Sciences company name? Who first coined the vaccine? Who first mentioned that we are having a vaccine for COVID-19? The first company.
No, sir.
Okay, you would see the newspaper or you will explore the Gilead Sciences and COVID-19. You will see this was the first company which responded for COVID-19 vaccine. Okay, okay. Then have you heard about AstraZeneca?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then have you heard about Pfizer?
Yes, sir.
And you have heard about also BioNTech, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, these are the companies who are inventing this vaccine, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I purchased this stock immediately after having their declaration. Have you got it?
Yes, sir.
For each of this stock, my return is negative right now. Now just think of the position of Bexinco Pharma. Where is the Bexinco Pharma?
In the end.
In the end of this
Value chain.
in the end of this canal.
Yes, sir.
But people have become more overconfident with this third party compared to the global investors who are skeptic regarding some negative consequence of having vaccinated by the people, right?
Yes,
You
sir.
see, in Norway, 29 people died after having vaccinated.
Yes, sir.
Don't you think that it will affect the price of Pfizer?
Yes, sir. It will.
Don't you think the risk may arise for AstraZeneca vaccine also?
Yes, sir.
So when this news has come out, what should happen? It should come down.
Yes, sir. It should come down.
But what is happening?
It,
Is it happening?
no, sir.
People are excessively go for buying Beximco, not only Beximco, all the companies related to Beximco.
Yes, sir. All the
Okay,
company.
I'm not recommending anyone to buy or sell. Don't take it as a recommendation. I'm just sharing my own experience that I'm holding the which company, the company which invented the vaccine. Okay, and I could not have a positive return yet, even after buying the stock immediately after their announcement. But people have already achieved a hefty amount of return after buying the company, which has received a contract to transfer or to to take buy from the Serum India and to sell to the Bangladesh government, right? Or to the private companies in Bangladesh. Okay, so uh, this vaccine is a global, right? This vaccine is not local, right? So in that case, you need to accommodate all the risk contingencies which may arise with this vaccine business. And you see more information is coming which would underestimate the price of the companies which have invented the vaccine. Is it true? So at the same time, what we need to uh, do to overcome this kind of overconfidence bias, often we have to review our trading record. We mentioned such kind of that we have some winner stock, we have some loser stock, and we need to identify that why we lost or why we made lost here. And for objective estimation of risk, you have to look at the portfolio performance more than 2 years. Okay, and this is very important. You see this, can anyone speak out about it? Don't confuse brains with a bull market. This is a common saying in the Wall Street. Okay, can you recall that I had a more than 100 loss in my portfolio in the very beginning of today, very beginning of portfolio management class? Can you recall?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right now I have more than 28,000 gain.
Yes, sir.
So do you think that I had used my brain to get this 28,000 gain?
No, sir.
What is contributing? Obviously my brain worked, but I may tend to feel that 90% brain, 10% bull market. But what may be true? It may be true that 80% is for bull market, 20% is for my brain, right? Okay. So let's continue for the remaining biases. We'll be running out of time. Okay, self-control bias. So when you have a
Sir, I had a
long-term goal,
question.
would you let me to take your question after having the class finished, as we are having short amount of time available?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So when we have a long-term goal and the short-term goal, often we forget about the long-term goal to pursue the short-term goal. So you see, after having the semester result, we feel that I need to have a very good study for having good result after 8th semester, right? That means your 6th semester result is now declared, and now you want to do very well in the 7th and 8th semester. so that you will have a very good result after having this BBA. But when seventh semester has started, you see some uh, thrilling movies have been released, and you have ended up 3 weeks for watching these movies. You forgot about the goal you set for your result for total BBA. Is it true? Does it happen?
Yes, sir, it's true.
We forget our long-term goal. For what reason? For pursuing our short-term satisfaction, short-term persuasion. Okay. So you see, sometimes we have a what is always recommended, we need to have a very long term perspective for having good gain from the financial market investment, right? Okay, so say I have invested 10 million for 10 years. So I need to have an allocation for 10 years which I should not intervene during these 10 years. I need to have this money after 10 years. But if we see that I like to go to Thailand for having some uh, personal pleasure, but I have insufficient money available. In that case, what is the likely behavior from me? I likely to sell some of this portfolio for which I plan to hold for 10 years intact.
Yes, sir, possible.
I will try to plan sell of some portion. Okay. In that case, how much I have available? For example, I have sold out 1 million. 1 million. How much available now for 10 years?
Yes, sir,
9
9
million,
million.
right? For 10 years. In that case, the amount of capital I invested has reduced compared to original required for pursuing my long-term goal, right? In that case, what I tend to do, I will take more risk for having the same amount of return, which will help me to have the same long-term goal realized. With the because I have invested 9 million for having the same amount of return to pursue the long-term goal, I will end up taking more risk or taking less risk. What do you think?
Some more risk.
So that is happening for what? Self-control, biasness, and what we should do, we should have a proper investment plan. And if we do not have a plan, this statement has caught my attention, that is, failing to plan is planning to fail. If we fail to plan, we need to be prepared for failure. Okay, what we are doing, if we fail to do plan, we are planning to get failed. Okay, and we need to have a very appropriate asset allocation strategy so that we will have a financial success in long term. Okay, then the next bias in emotional bias category, that is a status quo. A status quo is something like that: we do not like to make any changes. We do not like to make any changes because we feel that uh, let it go as it is. Do we have this kind of tendency? We have some kind of inertia. We have some kind of inertia that we do not feel it good, or we do not feel it to take challenges which is associated if we go for making changes there. That's why we like to you see, there are so many things in our life which we do not like, right? Say you have enrolled in the finance in the first year of your BBA, right? Is it true?
Yes,
And
sir.
after having the first year, a good percentage of the people have realized that finance is not for me. Is it true? Not true.
Yes, sir, it is true.
It is true. But you did not make any changes. But you had a changes to, you have a chance to go for, say, some military, or you also had a chance to go for making a startup, or you also had you also have had a scope to go for foreign study, or you also had a scope to appear in other admission tests and go for other opportunities. Okay, but can you recall that 2 or 3 out of you have actually did these changes? 2 or 3, 2 or 3 are not continuing with you. 2 or 3 people. Can you recall these people? 2 or 3 people have discarded finance and went to different discipline or different areas of study, or have pursued different career goal. Do you have these people, or you have no people? All people, uh, even though they didn't like it, they are still continuing it, which is true. Is there any 2 or 3 people among you who are not continuing with you now because they didn't like it? Yes or no? There should be a response, either no or yes.
So they are continuing with us.
They are
Continuing with us.
continuing with you. Okay. Okay, got it. So that is the essence of a status quo. They do not like to change it. They do not like to change it, though they like to change. They do not like it, but they do not like to change it. Okay. So this status quo bias is often related to endowment and regret aversion bias. What is the reason for uh, displaying this status quo bias? One reason is that uh, endowment bias is kind of when you have something in your ownership or in your endowment, you feel that that is more valuable. Say you have a laptop, you like to sell it, and you feel that that price should be 30,000 if you go for selling it. But if you go to the e-commerce shop, which are selling second-hand laptop, and if you see the same laptop which you are holding, you want to pay 15,000 for the same laptop. Is it true?
Yes, sir, it is true.
Why you value this laptop more? Because you have a ownership here.
Yes, sir. So the
So
loss
people
of
have a tendency, when they have the same property under their ownership, they feel it more valuable compared to the asset in which they do not have the ownership. So most often our parents have the land property. So our parents feel that their holding land is more valuable than the land which are available to buy in the same category. They feel it their land are more valuable. But in market, if you go for looking for the buyers, you see the average buying price, average bid price is less than the price estimated by your parents. Is it true?
yes, sir, it is true.
So from where this additional value is coming? This additional value is coming because people have the ownership, and this ownership gives people have a feeling that their assets are, those assets are more valuable. In that case, what they tend to do, they tend to irrationally hold their assets which of which prices already come down. Okay, So do you think that will be a good decision for their portfolio health?
No,
Do you
sir.
think that will not be a good decision for their portfolio health? The thing is that they have some kind of emotional attachment and they do not like to sell it. That's why they keep it as it is. And another thing is regret aversion bias, which is related to status quo bias. For example, you feel that I do not like finance. Not you. For example, I feel that I do not like finance. So I have transferred to marketing. Still, I do not know much about the marketing, right? After transferring to the marketing, I feel that marketing is not for me also. Can it happen?
Yes, sir, it can happen.
It can also happen. I feel that marketing is for me. Both things can happen, right?
Yes, sir.
But the thing is that if it turns out that if I discover that marketing is not for me also, I will do regret after transfer. I will do regret after transferring to marketing if I feel that marketing is not for me also. So do you feel that people want to have regret or people want to avoid the regret? If people have a make decision and that decision may have some positive outcome or that decision may turn out wrong. So for you need to be prepared for both. But if somehow it happens true that it actually happens, this negative thing, in that case, what you need to do? You need to do regret. So people have a tendency to avoid regret. So for avoiding regret, for having regret aversion, people do not like to change, though they do not like it. They do not like it. Okay. So that is the thing, what happened for having the regret aversion bias. But the thing is that uh, if the status quo bias happens, if the status quo bias happens, in that case, what happened, people engage in herding behavior. What is herding? Have you heard about this term? Let me conclude by discussing about this herding behavior. If you ask the your market analyst that what should I buy now? Okay. And whatever the suggestion, for example, he has suggested you to buy the Hokkani pulp and power, for example, your analyst has told you. But you feel that as many people are buying Robi, I should buy Robi. Why I am buying Robi? Because if it turns out that people have bought it 65 and after say after 6 months it has become 25 from 65, will it happen to many people?
Yes, sir. We'll get a sense of comfort.
We will get the space of comfort. We will get the space of comfort. We will have a tendency that I am not the person who has made this loss. There are so many people like me, and it's not the thing that we have done a mistake together. All people cannot do mistake together. It's something wrong in the market which caused the loss to this we many investors. Okay, that's why people feel it safer in popular investment in order to limit the potential future regret. So people will have a very comfortable space. So people will not have to make regret. Okay. So always what you are doing for your term paper, you need to make the efficient frontier analysis. You need to analyze the risk and return of each and every stock and you need to find out this, and you need to end up buying the stock which is line with your in line with your utility curve. Okay, if your utility curve is like this, you like to take more exposure, but if you end up buying this because you are conservative, or is the thing is that many people are buying, which people are staying here? Can anyone tell me? The people who are buying the saving certificate in their portfolio, more 90% of their portfolio contains the saving certificate, 10% in the stock market, say for example. In that case, people are staying here, or those people are staying here in the lower region, lower left region. Is it true?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so in that case, what you need to do, you need to make your efficient frontier, you need to construct your efficient frontier, and you need to find out in which point of the efficient frontier you want to stay. So in that case, you will have a, in this homework or your working, you already have assessed your risk and return properly, and you will have a very good proper asset allocation. And the thing is that what is the ending line for today's class? That is, bubble happen in the market, and always keep in mind you need to have a very long-term objective that will prevent a client from making investment that are too risky. Okay, can you recall the destiny?
Yes, sir.
Okay, why people went for making investment there? Because they observed that it is a very shortcut way. It is a very shortcut way of having enormous amount of gain. They forgot about what may happen in my long term. They forgot about the potentiality. Okay, so always we need to have a very good plan of making investment, and it's not we general investors who often feel very sad when they see that the stock price has come down in a daily price or monthly price. Okay, if you are 10 years, if your investment horizon is 10 years, you may have a routine checkup, but that is not the daily price movement, but that is not the monthly price movement. For a month, the price can go beyond, below the expected level. Okay, but if you have a long-term perspective, you would see that if you have made a good investment and you wait for long years, it is not unlikely that you will end up having poor performance in your investment portfolio. So I think it is sufficient for today's class, enough to digest. So let me stop the recording first.